nice to have you here in Vienna. What's your first opinions about the Vienna Comic Con?
I've loved it. I've been to many Comic Cons, and this has been just a really cool, fun, well organized, and really kind of exciting event because I get to see what the Viennese consider to be popular bits of cosplay, and they've done it amazingly. The costumes are just fantastic, so I'm loving it. And also I get a chance to see Vienna. It's like my first time here, and I can get the vibe of the city, and I'm really liking it. It's a very cool city.
I'm sure you have been on many conventions before. What are the main differences between the cons?
I think the main difference is I've always noticed a difference between, say, like going to conventions in America, between going to sort of a lot generally in the UK or Europe, and I think one of the main differences is just kind of, well, it's really just the nation itself. Like in America, they're so that's just part of the American vibe. They're so optimistic and so like, hey, they're so like completely, well, as they should be, they're completely unshy. They're just so enthusiastic, and they're so like, oh my God, this is amazing. Whereas when you come to like other conventions and you meet people who are bashful or shy, you're like, oh my God, this is so sweet because I get a chance to really I get a chance to see what they really enjoy about a particular TV show, and I get to talk to them about, what they really enjoy as far as cartoons go. So I think it's more kind of how you discover what kind of shows each different country's people generally like. And I'm in Vienna. I'm still trying to figure it out. I've met quite a few Game of Thrones fans, but I'm trying to see how popular, say, like Lord of the Rings would be out here, or how compared to other countries that I've been to. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see the differences.
I think Game of Thrones is everywhere in the world a hype. You had one. You had one of a really important character with a strong story. How would you afterwards describe a character?
After I finished filming him, Lancel was a character who had in a summary sentence. Lancel was a character who always had a very deep identity crisis going on. He was someone who didn't know how to do what he needed to within his family. He struggled with authority, both being led by it and trying to attain it. And I think he's this character. I sort of see him as this kind of. He's kind of at least for Cersei, he's sort of the ghosts of Christmas past. He's sort of this kind of symbol of sort of retribution for her previous for her crimes really in life, against really kind of innocence. Because when Lancel was in seasons 1 and 2, I mean, he was very much an underdog. He was very he was really, even though he was struggling to do it, he was trying to work for the Lannisters in a way that was successful. But he couldn't. He didn't know how he couldn't. It was just too much. And I think that what Cersei and the brief relationship that they had, and the way that she just sort of threw it aside, caused enough kind of problem and hurt and resentment to make him become the faith militant character that we see in seasons 5 and 6. So he's this sort of weird journey of retribution against people who have caused him, who he sees to be the enemy.
If you would have had the chance to do something different than Lennis did, what would it be?
If I'd had a chance to do a different story or a different character, there was one thing I was really interested in as the character Lancel. There's this, I mentioned it a couple of times. There's this great scene in the books where Lancel has recovered from his wounds, and he's married one of the Frey girls. It's kind of part of the agreement between the Lannisters and the Freys. And he's in the neck, and he is praying. He's begun to find religion, and he's feeling guilt and shame and just remorse and regret for all the things that he's been involved with in his family. He can't handle it anymore. He can't handle who he is. He can't handle what they've done, what's going on. It's just this crisis of faith. And he meets Jamie, and Jamie comes and talks to him, and he says, "Will you pray with me, cousin?" And he tells him what he's been doing about Cersei and their sleeping together and everything. But it was such a good scene in the book. So if there was something that I would have loved to have seen in the series, it would have been that. But I wouldn't change much else. I was pretty happy with what I got.
What was the most difficult part in the filming? Because there was like going nude or the burning of the sign in the head. What was the most difficult part for filming?
I think the most difficult we had a lot to do in season 2 at the Battle of Blackwater. Like that fight scene was just intense because there were 200 extras, all of whom were Baratheon and Lannister, and were fighting with each other really intensely. It was 5 days, I think, of night shoots, and it was freezing cold, and we were exhausted, and that was just that was a lot of hard work. I mean, it was so satisfying. It was so rewarding. And the scene itself looked brilliant. But I remember being in that on set, and it was raining for the first couple of days, and then it stopped. So they had a problem with continuity. So the techs basically got this massive like fire truck, put a pipe into the lake, which was like -2 degrees, and basically rained the water down on us. And so we were all just going, God, I'm gonna die, like so, just freezing cold. So that was the most kind of challenging for everyone involved. As far as a scene, just a performance scene, which I was really, the scene that I most enjoyed, which was a real challenge, was when Lancel comes back for the first time in season 5, and talks to Cersei. So it was this balance between trying to find someone who is sane enough for you to understand them, but sort of not in touch enough with reality to be not in touch enough with reality to feel normal around. So finding that balance was quite a challenge, quite fun.
I know that you have been filming since a child. Do you remember your casting for Game of Thrones? Was it difficult, or was it something special, or like everywhere else before?
I remember the audition that I first went in for. I went in for the role of Joffrey, and I was doing the butcher's boy scene when he's by the lake with Arya. And I remember that Nina Gold was there with Robert and Dan and David. There were 4 of them in there. And we read that scene, and I remember it being like a really fresh day. I was in there, and I was like, okay, this is. I was really enjoying being in the room as an actor, and I was really enjoying the scene because it was such a cool kind of idea. And obviously, I had no idea what they would do with it later. But then when they brought me back in for the second audition, that was for Lancel, and it was the breastplate stretcher scene with Ned Stark and Robert Baratheon. And then I did that, and it was the same. It was always like really exciting. It was always a really exciting feeling. And then on the recall, like the third audition and the callback for Lancel, David Benioff got up and he said to me, he gave me this note, and he goes, all right, Eugene, I want you to do that again, but I want you to be really just like, what the. Like just be really pissed with Robert. Like you can't be bothered. Like, why am I doing this? I hate my job. And I was like, okay, cool, let's do it. And we did it, and it was just fun. It was great. It was exactly how it should be. It was a fun, like leaving the room, like, God, I want to go back in there. It was a good feeling. I really enjoyed the audition. It was great.
Did you enjoy the trainings?
The training?
The training.
I did. I loved the training. I was brilliant. I remember when we were doing the choreography for any of the fight stuff, and I was like, I'm in heaven. It was amazing. It's so fun. And also, it's also kind of, it's not just what you're doing, it's what you're watching other people do. It's what you're learning from just other people doing their job like 1,000%. You're like, I'm just watching. I'm just absorbing all this information, and it was brilliant. It was so great to have so much to practice and so much to work towards. And the sword fighting was really fun, especially in season 2.
How difficult was it?
It wasn't difficult. It was more sort of like scary. Like the physical stuff wasn't like kind of, I wasn't like, oh, I can't do this. It was more like, oh God, I hope I do it right. You know what I mean? Like I was always very aware of how important it was to like really get it right when you're doing it, because they've got to move really quickly. There's a lot of stuff to shoot. So when we were getting ready for the first big fight scene that I do, which is when the Hound, Lancel, and a little sortie of Lannisters come out of the gate near Flea Bottom, I think it is. We had this massive wide shot. I mean, they were at the bottom of the beach looking up towards this castle, and there were 20 of us. and the adrenaline before you go out that door. I mean, it was like the beginning of a rugby match. We were like, like really pumped. So we just wanted to make sure you got it right and you didn't mess up your choreography. It was fun. It's like a dance, It's like making sure you don't get it wrong while you're dancing. That's the similarity.
So your character died now.
Spoiler alert.
Are you happy with how he died?
Yeah, I had a good death. It was great. I was thrilled. When I got the call about my death, I was thrilled. I was like, everyone's going to die in this show. And when they told me how, Dan and David gave me a call, and they gave me an email. So it was like an email of death. I was like, I know what this is, guys. Like, you do. Like, it was such a passive email. It said, hey, it was from Dan. It said, hey, Eugene, we're trying to get hold of you, buddy. I was like, Dan, like, that's like, what are you, we're going to kill you now. It's obviously what he meant. So I get this call and I'm like ready for it. And I was actually quite looking forward to it. I was like, I just hope it's good, And they told me what it was. And I was just like, I was like, okay, wait a minute. Can I just be sure that I heard that right? Because I don't want to get big-headed. I don't want to run away with this. You're going to blow up the whole set. He was like, yes, that's what we're going to do. I was like, okay, great. Thank you. I was like, this is fantastic. And I really enjoyed filming that scene on the last day. That was my last day, crawling for my life, covered in shit and blood and sweat. It was good. I was happy.
Game of Thrones is a series where nearly everybody dies. Do you think we really need like happy endings in the end, or can everybody die in the end?
I don't think happy endings are kind of. I don't think if you're interested in happy endings, then don't read these books. Most people die, and it's usually quite desperately. But I don't think happy endings is what anyone really wants from these kind of stories. I think they don't want. I actually think they don't want the happy ending, because the happy ending isn't meaningful in the kind of traditional sense. I think they want something that I think they want something they've never seen before, which is a very hard thing to do. That's probably why George R.R. Martin, may he be praised, is really taking every his time with his next book. He really wants to do it right. He really wants to do something special, and Dan and David do with the show. So I think, I don't think we should expect happy endings, but we should expect exciting endings.
If you would have the decision, which family would win in the end?
Which family would win? Well, obviously, I want the Faith Militant to win. I don't want the Lannisters to win. No way, man. If I had a choice, if there had to be a family that took sorted out Westeros, it would probably be the Starks or Targaryens. I mean, it would have to be, which is sort of what's happening in some sense in the show at the moment. But I think it would be Stark or Targaryen. I don't know, man. I don't know. Can you rule a kingdom when you got dragons? I don't know, man. I don't know. I think it would probably be. I think probably the Starks. They're the most noble family by far. Targaryens are mental.
Let's see.
They're out of control. They're out of control, man.
Okay, we will see in April or May. Last question. We talked now a lot about your past. What about your future? I know that you filmed some short films in the last months. Mm-hmm. What can you tell us about it? Because I found nothing on the internet yet.
Yeah, it's all really exciting at the moment. There's loads of work out, and I'm really excited to tell everyone about it. So, number one, go on to Netflix now, and you can watch The Lodgers. It's a 1920s Gothic horror film that I filmed 2 years ago. It's and I play the role of an Irish war veteran. And it's a great film. I mean, it's not a horror story. It's a ghost story. So it's not. If you don't like horror films, then this is the horror. If you're nervous about horror films, then this is the film for you. It's like a very really atmospheric, very pretty story. I really recommend it. So try that out. Netflix on The Lodgers. I've got another film, Kill Ben Like, which is a present day kind of comedic action feature film. And I play Kill Ben Like, and I'll be quick. It's about a YouTube sensation who discovers to his horror that there is someone going around town killing anybody that has got his name, and it's about him going on the run, trying to avoid being killed. And I play him, and it's a crazy cool comedy, and I recommend it. That'll be out soon. Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. And then I've got 3 short films. I've got Resonance, which I produced and was the lead in last year. Go onto my Instagram or Twitter account and you can watch it on Vimeo right now. Okay. Mensana is a psychological thriller set in the future, which I play the role, and it's doing some festivals at the moment. And then what I've just finished, which you alluded to, is Love Have I Known. It's set in 1917, and it's about a man who falls in love with a boy he's at school with, and then the boy leaves, and he goes, and the character I play, Captain James Piney, goes to fight in the trenches of the First World War. And it's about longing for connection and missing someone who you really your heart yearns for whilst you're in very difficult circumstances. So those are the 5 things that I recommend. Oh, and I spill my drink whilst doing it. So those are the 5 things that I recommend.
Okay, so we have a lot to see with you in the next weeks.
It's good.
Thank you for the interview and your time here, and let's enjoy the Vienna Comic Con.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.